Hello, my name's Aviva, and today I wanted to share with you why I didn't like House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, which is the second book in the Crescent City series. Oh, and by the way, this entire video is going to be very spoiler filled, not only for Crescent City, but I am going to mention stuff from the other series that Sarah J. Maas has written. So if you missed it, I actually recently did a reading vlog for books 1 and 2 in the Crescent City series. I had read them back to back and I posted all of my thoughts, all of my reactions, all of my conspiracy theories as I was reading them. So if you wanted to check out those videos, I'll make sure to have a link for them in the description below. But basically, I had just posted my Crescent City 2 reading vlog, and at the end of it, I gave my initial reactions of how I felt for this book and what I didn't enjoy about it. But then after I posted it and everybody watched it, I got a lot of DMs and I ended up chatting about things with people, and I kind of thought through all of my thoughts a little bit clearer, and I've decided that I wanted to make a little bit of a follow-up to my ending for Crescent City 2's vlog, because I have a lot more precise thoughts that I wanted to just talk out again with you guys in case you were really curious about everything that bothered me about this book. So first up is the actual layout and writing of the story. I thought that in general, the entire Crescent City series had a very dense writing that was very different from what she used to do. Like, I feel like it was very weighed down, a little bit textured, a little bit too much words. And I feel like, you know what? Basic it down a little. I get that it's a high fantasy series, but if you made it a little bit more like your other series, I think it would have been a lot easier to consume. But in Crescent City Book 1, I was really into the actual storyline. So I just had to concentrate a little bit more and get through it, and it didn't bother me as much. But then once we got to Crescent City 2 and everything started bothering me, which we'll get to my whole list in a minute, but once all of those things piled up, the writing just, I couldn't do it anymore. And then on top of that, we already had the multiple POV thing going, which usually isn't my favorite, but I can handle it. Like in Throne of Glass, we had multiple POV and I was fine with it because it was like a chapter by chapter thing. Like we got a full chapter of someone's point of view because something else was happening like across the world, and we got to see that for a little bit, and then we jumped back to whatever was going on in this person's point of view. But in this book specifically, we added in a couple of more points of views from Crescent City Book 1, and then it wasn't a chapter by chapter thing. It was like a moment by moment thing. So we were following 5, 6 people's point of views, and they were in different places the entire time. So it was so dragged out because of that, because we'd get a page and a half of some person's point of view doing this, and then we jump to somebody else's point of view doing this. And it was just it was a little bit too much for me. It kind of reminded me about the Last Hour series by Cassandra Clare. That was one of the biggest reasons why I didn't enjoy that series, was because we were following too many people's point of views and our brains were just scattered all over the place. You know what I mean? Anyway, besides that, I just felt like this book was a very much of a bridge book. And I happen to used to really respect Sarah J. Maas for never giving me a book that felt like that. I think that all of her books, even though I like some more than others, none of them ever felt like a bridge book, but this one specifically felt such like a middle book. Like we were just trying to get from point A to point B, and it somehow took 800 pages of boringness that definitely could have been condensed to 300 pages. So whatever, I said it, you heard it. And after that, I also was thinking, were the first 200 pages not such a blue ball moment? We ended book 1 thinking okay, they're about to sleep together. It didn't happen. It's fine. It will happen at the beginning of book 2. And they're going to explore their relationship. Something's going to happen there. And then we get to the beginning of the book and all of a sudden they've decided that they don't want to sleep together until winter solstice because they want to get to know each other. Even though both of them, they haven't been celibate. They're such party goers, whatever. They'll sleep with anybody. It's not a thing for them that oh, I don't want to sleep with you. But now that it's serious, I think I have to get to know you a little bit more. So let's not put sex into the mix. I heard it, I get it, it's fine. But then once the mating thing happened, I was just nope, I didn't like this. So the entire mating situation, the fact that they just discussed it, they decided, it's I think we should call each other mates because boyfriend and girlfriend don't really sound like such a good thing for us. It sounds too normal. So now we're mates. I hated that. I thought it was so freaking bad how that went down. I happen to have thought that they should have slept together and then all of a sudden felt it. Like throughout both books, I kept trying to like pinpoint of like, oh my God, that's a mating bond. Like they feel it internally, even though they don't realize it. Like I was trying to point out all of those little moments and little foreshadowings we got of the fact that they were mates. And then you went and ruined it by like just giving us a discussion of like, sure, yeah, we're mates, go for it. You know, like if they would have had that discussion as they slept together for the first time at page like 500 or whatever, I think it would have been so much better. Like if only they would have like felt it and been like, oh my God, we're mates, you know? Like I wanted that moment and we didn't get that. And then the second that all went down, I was so freaking disappointed that I literally just like, I stopped caring. I literally loved Bryce and Hunt in book 1. And I think that this is the first couple that Sarah J. Maas has given me that I'm no longer a fan of, because that whole thing, I don't know, I was just ruined for it. Okay, and also, why does everybody have to fall for Bryce? I am usually not one to complain about this stuff. Like, I usually am fine if, like, everybody has a crush on the main character. Like, she's the main character. She's such a badass. Like, I understand it, you know? Like, it's pretty cliche, but at the same time, I'm usually cool with it. But in this instance, I was very bothered by it. Like, the entire Ethan storyline, the fact that, like, he was, like, pining after her this entire time and we didn't know it, I absolutely hated. Like, I originally understood his storyline. The fact that he was upset with Bryce for hurting his brother, because Connor has been obsessed with Bryce forever, and she just like strung him along for a really long time, and he was upset for his brother because they were so close. I totally got that storyline. And then in this book, you just like threw us a literal curveball of saying like, no, he actually like was absolutely in love with her and he had so much more going on in his head that we never really knew about, everything like that. I was just like, no, not everybody has to think that Bryce is like their literal mate. Like, it just doesn't have to happen, you know? Like, don't give us that. Like, let her have some platonic relationships that have, you know, interesting dynamics, stuff like that, you know? Okay, and then I also thought that Bryce's character changed a little bit too much, a little bit too quickly in this book. First of all, the entire 180 she did on that princess situation throughout the timeline of this book, I was just like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it. Like, she was so against it in book 1. She was so like, I don't even care about it, nothing like that. And then the second that the world finds out that she's an actual princess, she starts like using it, kind of being into it, like yada, yada, whatever it was. I don't know, I really didn't enjoy that part of her storyline. Like, I don't know, it just happened too quickly for me. And Sarah J. Maas isn't someone who usually puts something on you too quickly. Like, with the whole thing in Throne of Glass, Aileen, whatever, like, everything that happened with her, all of her changes in her demeanor, it happened slowly throughout, like, 4 books, 3, 4 books, whatever. And I felt the slow progression of this. But in this book specifically, it was just way too quick for me. And then I also didn't really like how Bryce started feeling like Aileen, in the fact of like, oh, she's gonna think like 10 steps ahead and do something without telling the rest of her crew, and then they're all gonna find out afterwards, and then she's just gonna have to like apologize for it, you know? Like, that was a very Aileen thing, and I really liked that about Aileen, but it also very much fit into her character specifically. And then when Bryce went and started doing that, I'm just like, it doesn't feel like Bryce. Like, that's not something that like Bryce would have done in book 1. And then like, where is this coming from in book 2? And I'm specifically talking about the whole thing that went down with Sophie's brother. I can't really remember the name of him, but if you know, because you've read the book, then you know. And my point is that I don't know, it felt very out of character. And I just think that Sarah J. Maas decided to change up Bryce's personality way too quickly. And then can we also take a moment to discuss how horrible of a friend Danica actually was right from the start. In book 1, I kept being hurt for Bryce every time we found out something new about Danica. And then this book literally blew it away. Like, literally the fact that Danica had a secret mate and she literally hid it from like every single person in her life. I'm sorry, but I think Danica is kind of a horrible person, and I don't understand why we didn't get more of that hurt feeling from Bryce. Like, I remember them mentioning it like here and there, especially in book 1, of just like, oh, aren't you hurt by this? Like, you know, do you need some like moral support because like Danica is an actual horrible friend and you loved her so much? Like, we didn't get enough of that, especially when we went deeper into the fact of how much Bryce actually hurt because of this. Like, after Danica died, and then, you know, we kept seeing how depressed Bryce was after it and how she had to like literally come alive again, and it took her forever. I just think like, I feel extra bad for her to see how much she hurt for somebody who lied to her about literally every single thing in her life and kept so much secret. Like, we're not even going to touch upon the fact that, like, she literally got her drunk one night and tattooed the freaking horn on her back. Like, I'm sorry, but Danica was a horrible friend, and I was very bothered by it every single time we found out something new that she kept from Bryce and basically everybody. And then also, did it not feel like the entire backseat mating storyline came out of left field? I mean, I ended up looking back and I was like, okay, I see the foreshadowing of this, but at the same time, I'm just like, what the fuck? And then lastly, before I start touching upon the ending and all of my thoughts about how everything like that went down, I wanted to just mention for a second about the Autumn King. So we've always gotten the feeling from him that he has been looking into the universe in general, and he's been trying to find something out. It's been very secretive, yada, yada, yada. And I was really hoping that in this book, he would be more prominent and he would possibly come into their situation of, you know, helping them out somehow, even though he's like kind of a horrible person. Like, we were just getting so many little sprinkles of the fact that like he kind of knows what's going on, or he's trying to figure it out as well. And I kept waiting for him to just like pop in and be like, I think we guys have to have the discussion, you know, like we have to talk about this. And I never got that, and it was very disappointing for me. Okay, so now for the actual ending of this book. I don't know if I said it at the beginning of this video when I was talking about like the entire boringness of this entire plot, but as we were reading this book for like 700 pages, I was really bored. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, we didn't need this moment, blah, 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 blah. And then we got to the last 100 pages and I did start to see all of the reasonings as to why we went through every moment in this book. So I'll give her that of being like, okay, it's now coming together and making sense. And I will say that I did enjoy the entire idea of the ending, the fact that like the Astri are parasites and they go from world to world, and you know, they basically leech off of people's powers, and the way that they brought everybody into this world and how everybody's blinded by it, etc., etc., etc. The entire ending of it, I liked that idea. I'm not gonna like lie about that. I actually thoroughly enjoyed the ending of this book. What I didn't like about this book is the 700 pages that it took to actually get there. And I do think that people are going to end up being blinded by that ending because it had such a wow factor. The fact that Bryce ended up in the ACOTAR world and she met all of those characters and then all of a sudden it ended, I think people are going to be so blinded by it that they're not gonna look at the rest of the book for what it was, and they're just gonna start throwing predictions out there, seeing where it's going to go, yada, 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 you know? And I think it would have been so much more interesting, and it would have been totally fine if she would have landed up in hell like she was supposed to and met Ada's, is that his name? That prince that kept showing up in the first two books. Like, if she would have just like met him and then, you know, the story would have gone in the way that it felt like it was going, just like, you know, she's going to get to the princes and the princes are going to help her, you know, take over the world and the Astri and whatever it is that was going to happen. Like, I think that would have been a fine storyline, especially because I talked to so many people and they kept saying how they were hoping to see more of Ada's in this book. And I don't think we got enough of him, especially for how much people were expecting him to be in this book, you know? So I think that would have been a fine storyline. But then if that couldn't have happened, I think it would have been an even more fine storyline if she would have ended up in the Throne of Glass world. And you want to know why? Because Throne of Glass already had the Val princes happening. It already had the word keys, all of the portals. Like, that was a very comfortable topic in the Throne of Glass world. And also, Throne of Glass was already completed. So personally, for my feelings, I think it would have been totally more okay for me for characters from different series to mingle if it would have happened with the Throne of Glass characters, because their story is over. So anything that could have happened with Throne of Glass would have been an after effect from that storyline, you know? Like, we already know how it ended, that's fine, and now we just get to see a little bit more of them, and then whatever would have happened happened. But the fact that A Court of Thorns and Roses isn't yet completed is too messy for me. Like, I don't want these stories to mingle in any way. I want the entire Court of Thorns and Roses world to stay in their world, and I want Crescent City to stay in their world. And I like the idea that Crescent City is the tie-in to the fact that like there is a multiverse out there, you know? But I think it would have been fine to just somehow give us those references of knowing that, you know, their whole universe is being taken place in the same thing. Like all the series are taking place in the same multiverse. I think just knowing that was fine enough, and it was kind of like a fun thing to follow along with and try to find all of the hints. But you add in the ACOTAR characters and I'm just like, where is this gonna go? Like, I don't want the next story to be in the ACOTAR world, because then it's like, what if you haven't read Crescent City? And then I don't want all the ACOTAR people to come into the Crescent City world, because then it's like, what's gonna happen when we jump back into the next ACOTAR book? Are we going to have known what was going on? And it just, there's too much overlapping, you know? But then I think about it and I'm like, okay, well, I've always thought that Amrem was the tie-in to all of these books connecting. The fact that she's so old, she has all of this like knowledge, she speaks the old language, she like everything about her. I knew that she was the tie-in to all of these worlds. So I kind of understand why they brought her to the ACOTAR world, like why Bryce landed up there, because Amrem is the one that's going to really be able to help her, because she does have that knowledge of what happened however long ago when Crescent City's world probably came to be. Like, I always thought that Amrem possibly got to the ACOTAR world when the Big Bang happened of everybody migrating to Crescent City. Like, Amrem somehow landed up in the ACOTAR world, you know? But at the same time, I'm not happy with the fact that the two characters are mingling. Did I not yet mention that I don't want this to be an Avengers plotline? I very much like that reference of, like, you know, Marvel's Avengers, Crescent City, ACOTAR turning into an Avengers vibe. Like, if I didn't say that already, I said it now. I don't like the idea. Okay, and then also, I didn't really like Tharion's ending. Like, I thought it was a little bit left field of the fact that, like, he became a slave to the Viper Queen just so that he wouldn't die because he broke up with the princess. Like, he's been engaged to that princess for, like, 10 freaking years, and he always just let it be whatever it was. And, like, I get it. Like, okay, fine. He finally had enough and he wanted to break up with her, but he knew what was going to happen. Like, why is it all of a sudden like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Let me go put myself into slavery so that, you know, the queen from the sea doesn't actually get to me. Like, I don't know. It was a very quick thing for me, and I really didn't like it, and I felt like it was a little bit left field for his character. And then also the fact that Hunt became a slave again, I am not here for that storyline. Like, we ended book 1 from him going from a slave to not being a slave, and now we're ending book 2 with him not being a slave, going back into slavery. Like, I don't know, I really didn't like that little storyline ending sort of thing. And then also the fact that Hunt and Bryce are ending this book not in the same place, and therefore they're going to start book 3 not in the same place. It kind of felt a little Accord of Mist and Fury ending to me. Like, you know, they were finally together, things were finally happening, and then all of a sudden they're separated, you know? Just felt like similar things to me. Okay, and then also let's talk about Rune for a second. So the whole thing with him and the hand, like, I'm fine with it. I happen to have not seen it coming, and somehow everybody thought that, like, you know, Day was the hinge right from the beginning, and I did not catch on to that until all the way until the end. But for some reason, I'm feeling like they're mating up, like that time when they slept together in their telepathic world or whatever. I felt like that was like a mating sort of sleeping, and I don't know why, but I'm bothered of like, they're really mating up. Like, I'm not sure. Like, usually I'm fine when people mate up, you know, like A Court of Thorns and Roses, give me everybody mated, you know, like I'm usually fine with it. But for some reason, I'm just like, ugh, really? They're going to be mates now? Like, not actually like, oh, they just really like each other, but mates, you know? And then also, Rune looking like rice sand at the end made zero sense to me. I really want you to think about this for a second. Rune, in the beginning of book 1, when we were talking about him having these shadow abilities and how his powers came from his mother's side, and there was so much there that felt really secretive. And then I thought like right away that he was probably the same person as Azrael, because Azrael has shadow powers, and he's also not a normal person in his world. He's like one of a kind, and he's always looked down on and everything like that. And the whole idea that, like, you know, the Autumn King was mad that Rune got these shadow powers because he got it from his mother's side, and it felt like it was something that was like a little bit bad, and it felt super similar to Azrael. And then we get to the end of the book, and all of a sudden Rune looks exactly like Rysand and not Azrael. I'm just like, why? Like, where is the connection between their powers, you know? Like, I really didn't understand that. I really thought that he was connected to Azrael in some way. Like, they were both shadow singers, and I'm just so lost on that moment. And I also want to just circle back for 1 second of how it would have made more sense for Bryce to end up in the Throne of Glass world, and how it totally, not that it would have made more sense necessarily, because I feel like we really need Amrem a little bit if we're going to, you know, do a crossover between series. But happens to be when I heard about the sword, like this special sword that Bryce has, I didn't think about the sword from A Court of Thorns and Roses. I thought of the sword from Throne of Glass, because was it GOODREADS? I don't remember what the name was from Throne of Glass, but Aileen's sword that she basically got from, like, you know, her ancestors, like her and Dory, and it was like, oh, but it's been both our ancestors and it could belong to either one of us. And, you know, like that whole storyline of like, it's a very old sword and it came from like the beginning of the Fae being in this world. I was like, okay, that is the twin to Bryce's sword. Like the other sword from like Agatar, sure, it made sense too, but like I think it would have been just as easy for her to go into the Throne of Glass world and do that whole sword parallel sort of thing with Throne of Glass's sword than Agatar's sword. And it would have been so much more fun because Throne of Glass is over, and then we wouldn't have had like, you know, this unfinished idea sort of thing going on, you know? And then the last thing that I wanted to somewhat touch upon, because I was talking to someone and they mentioned something, and then it kind of got like my brain working of like, oh, what if sort of thing. But the Dusk Court, you know how there's all these theories going around in the Avatar world of like that the under the mountain prison, whatever it's called, is actually like a dead court, and it's called Dusk because like that's the only thing that's missing or something like that. So there was stuff talking about in Crescent City of the Dusk Truth, I think it was called. And I just think that now, even though I don't like making predictions, but I have this like weird thing because someone like told me about it, and now I'm just like, I see that happening, is that maybe Bryce is going to go to the bone carver in this prison, and she's somehow going to do something with this dead Dusk Court of sorts. I don't know. I haven't thought this through very much, but I feel like there's like, you know, something there, and it hasn't connected in my brain yet, but I wanted to quickly mention it. But anyway, if you made it to the end of this video, I really appreciate you listening to everything I didn't like about this book. I'm very happy to have gotten it off my chest. I've had so many conversations with people already about this book, and I appreciate you listening to all of my thoughts here instead of making me re-type it out on Instagram DMs, because I basically had to do that like 50 times yesterday, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because literally everything I just said, I basically had to talk out to like 1,000 people in my DMs. So I appreciate you watching this video. If you did make it to the end, let me know what you thought of everything I didn't like. Obviously, a lot of my things are going to be very unpopular opinions. This is a Sarah J. Maas book. It's very hyped up. People are going to absolutely love it because anything that she puts out, people are going to love. But I think that I've gotten a little bit more critical over time, and I kind of see a little bit through things more, and things bother me a little bit more. And I do think that this is Sarah J. Maas's worst book that she read because of everything I just said. So anyway, leave me a comment down below of what you thought of this book, if you have anything to add of what you didn't enjoy about this book, or maybe if you disagree with me, whatever. Anyway, leave me a comment if you enjoyed watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. And anyway, thank you so much for watching and clicking on my video. And until next time, enjoy reading.